Hey everybody, this is Matt from Firewood in the Field. Thanks for tuning into the channel today. On this video, I want to do a follow-up to some of my previous videos and show how the Gorillabac Log Lift can be mounted to a log splitter. I published some content showing this in the use on the back of my pickup, and here shortly, I'd like to use it to split some logs. So let's jump right in. I'll show you how this gets installed. Okay, we're going to start here at the back of the splitter. And there's a beam down here. I'll bring the camera down so you can see what I'm talking about. This works with any log splitter that has this beam flange. It should work with any log splitter that has this beam flange on it. Let me bring the camera down so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, when I say beam, this is what I mean. A little easier to see on the other side where there's not the log tray. Now this is a Country Tough 22 ton, but this is made by Spico. You can see the yellow paint, and this shelf actually bolted right on. I bought it from Tractor Supply, badged to go on Country. I cannot remember the County Line, I think is the brand of splitters at Tractor Supply. But if your splitter has this beam, this will work. Okay, the first step that I recommend is to go ahead and get our jack positioned. We're going to take this jack assembly, and it's got the round pocket right here. We're going to turn it so that is facing in, and just set it right there on the ground by the splitter. Next, we take this piece. Now this end gets a coating of grease on it, so try not to grab there. This one's due for another coat. It's got this end, which goes into our jack. Let's pull the pin out, set this in there. Get that chain out of the way. And then you just want to rest it up against the log splitter like that. Next, I'm going to turn this jack handle to raise this up to get it closer to where it needs to be to get mounted. Let me reposition the camera. I'm just going to kind of hold it with my hand, steady it. As you get closer, you can see how this plate isn't quite the same, so you want to kick the base of your splitter in, the jack in. I'm doing this on unlevel ground, so you can see how this would work in the field, if you will. All right, it's at least somewhat positioned now. Next comes with these little plates and fasteners. You can see all it is a plate of steel with a little piece welded onto one side to give it a little off kick. And the way this generally works is one side mounts on one set of holes, the other side mounts on the other set of holes. You'll see what I'm talking about here in just a minute. There you can see this is that piece I just jacked in the air. See, I've got the jack just resting there. So that those plates are going to effectively act as a clamp on either side of the splitter. There's two sets of holes, a set that's on the inside and a set that's on the like inboard and outboard, if you think of it. So pick whichever side you like, and the flange part goes on the part from the log splitter. So go ahead and get one side started, you may have to, just kind of finagle things around a little bit. So most of the time, most log splitters, one side will use one side of holes, the other will use the other. So on this side of the splitter, I use the holes on the outside. All right, so on the other side, I used the outboard set. So this side, I'm going to use the inboard set. And it'll vary with your splitter. If your machine ends up taking both of them on the same side, then do what fits. But, all right, that's at least started. And get a nut started on each one. All right, now we've at least got them started. Now the next thing to do before we tighten down those bolts, we want to make sure we have about an inch, maybe, but an inch gap. You want a gap right here. And the book, the manual, the instruction manual for these guys will tell you exactly what to put. But you don't want it butted right up against it. You want a little bit of space right there. You want a gap. And the next step will be to get 2 wrenches and tighten down those bolts. Quick disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by Gorillabac. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. This is not an official review, or this is not an official stance that is given by the company. Anything that I say here is just my own experience. I like the product. I use it. I think it fills kind of a niche area in the firewood world. In fact, you can use it on your splitter as well as use it on your truck. I think it's a good product. I like it, and that's why I'm posting this content. But please don't take anything I say out of context. And of course, if you purchase one of these, do it, follow the instruction manuals and all the warnings and everything that they give you. So just my quick disclaimer, I'm not affiliated with Gorillabac in any way. They're not paid me for this video. I bought this piece of equipment years ago, long before I ever started a YouTube channel. Just want to share this with everybody in case it helps someone else out. All right. Before I start tightening the bolts down, I thought I'd get the camera and try to give you a better look at how it goes on. So on this side, I used, it's hard to see with the camera, there's my other holes. I don't know if those are coming up. I'm holding the camera, I can't really see it. And on the other side, you can see that a little better. And those just act as little clamps. There we go. That's all it does. That just clamps on to the splitter. The reason why that works is all the weight of the log, once this is assembled, all the weight of the log is going to be handled via that jack. I'm going to set the camera back down and get those bolts tightened. As I mentioned earlier, you do want to have a gap here. It's part of the procedure, and you may have to, see, as I went ahead and took a little pressure off the foot, that straightened that out. What I found works best is, while everything is still loose, you get this where you want it. There is a spirit level. Right here you can see if it's level, but since I'm on unlevel ground, I just look at the back of my splitter and I make sure that things are orientated, so that they're all in line. You see that I've got a gap here like I should. I may have to hold that while I tighten these bolts down. 9/16 wrench or 14 millimeter fits. So I'm going to go ahead and just start snugging these up a little bit. These bolts you'll find, I found it was everywhere on this kit. It's the only minor complaint I have. All the bolts are just barely long enough. They just barely get thread protrusion. It is a nylock nut. It's a locking nut with that nylon insert, so maybe that's fine, but I like to have a little more thread protrusion, but it wouldn't stop me from going to the, if it really bothered me that much, I'd go to the hardware store and get some longer bolts. But it hasn't been something I've been that worried about, as you can tell, since I'm still using them. Just a little feedback if anyone from Gorillabac is watching. They give us just a slightly longer bolts on everything. All right, I do like to get these pretty snug. Not crazy tight, maybe just one ugga dugga instead of 2 or 3 ugga duggas. And I usually just use 2 wrenches instead of a ratchet handle or anything. And righty tighty, lefty loosey. Okay. I'm going to raise the jack handle now. So there's no weight on it. Make sure that it stays. All right. That stayed put. Something I like to do, now that I've got the weight off the jack, I like to just go ahead and just give another quick snug to the bolts. Sometimes I've found that you may have had it on a little bit of a bind or something by using the jack to support it while you put it together. When you release that pressure, things may work themselves a little loose. So I've never had these come loose while I use it. Never a bad idea to check though. All right. Okay, we're almost done putting the Gorilla back together. You can see I've got the foot currently is in the air, so I'm going to lower that before I go to the next, before I do anything else. I want to make sure that that's got weight, or at least touching on the ground. All right, there we go. That's good and firm now. One of the reasons you want that jack put down, or the reason you want that jack touching the ground before you do this next step, is if you don't, the splitter is going to tip over on you. Now, if you have it hooked to something, if you got a garden tractor or something hooked to the front of the splitter, that's fine. In fact, that's probably not a bad idea in most cases, but for now, I just got it sitting here and I don't want to have it tip up on me, so you want to have that jack touching the ground. So the next thing that goes on, and if this is your first use, you want to put a coat of grease down about right there. That's what this pivots on. It just sits with grease. This has some grease on it. It's pretty old. Before I actually use the machine, I'll put a little new grease on it, but just for now, it's fine. You grab this. And this little guy is heavier than it looks, I tell you what. There it is. I don't know if you can tell on the camera or not. I'm on a little bit of an incline as you go toward the building here, so this level is all kinds of wonky. You can take your anchor that I've showed in my other videos. You can go ahead and just snap it in so it's not going anywhere. And the Gorillabac is installed. Just like that. Let me take the camera down, show you it from a couple other angles, and then I'll show you how you can tow and move the splitter with this attached. All right, friends. There we are. We got our gap between the pipe and the splitter. Just about how we like it. My splitter's got this little, almost looks like an H on the back, which makes it kind of nice to give you a visual to see how you're getting things set up. There it is. I'm going to go get a garden tractor and hook to the front and show you how you can tow this now with that Gorillabac on the end. This fits a 2-inch ball is what it's made for. I do have a piece of angle and a bracket that I made on the back of this little lawnmower / garden tractor or I've got a 2-inch ball. So you'll have to fit it up to whatever equipment you've got, whether a riding lawnmower, tractor, ATV, whatever you have that you want to move it around with, just a standard 2-inch ball. And hooking it is pretty straightforward. It's your typical, and the log splitters vary, so I'm not going to bring the camera over and zoom in. I'm going to assume everyone knows how to hook this up. You do need to lift up on this jack a little bit, or you're not going to be able to raise it. So you got to lower this jack. The jack is now in the air. And the splitter, it gets really tippy at this point, so don't go too crazy high. It doesn't take much effort to lift the front of the splitter when you've got this crane on the back. Now I should be able to lift it up. Pull this pin. And there we go. All right, the next step before you can tow it around is to take that jack and move it to the travel position. And you do that like so. This is the jack. You see it's got holes. The pin can go in straight up and down. That's how I had it. It can also go in sideways. So I mount this upside down to make it in travel mode. There you go. And now you can tow it around your yard and your property without worrying about that jack dragging on anything. I will advise though, if you're using this Gorillabac Log Lift, when you get to where you want to unhook from your machine, put that jack foot down first. I oftentimes will just leave it hooked to the garden tractor where I'm splitting, because I got to bring it back anyway. I don't leave my equipment sit out in the field, so when I'm done for the day, I'll just drive it on back. So let me bring the camera in a little closer just to show you that. That's all it is, fellas and friends, ladies, whoever. This chain that's dangling down, this is actually used like a winch. I usually just hook it on that hook right there like that, just so going down, if I'm towing across the yard, it doesn't snag anything. I haven't shown that feature for the Gorillabac yet, but you can. The overhead pulley, actually, it has there's one cable, 2 pulleys. One of them's on this little snatch block. You can actually attach, you can use this as an anchor point. You can attach that one hook with the snatch block here and run your cable out horizontally, and you can actually winch the logs up to you. And it'll do it. It's really slow though. I just prefer to roll the rounds to the machine. All right, there it is. Well, that's going to be a wrap for today. Stay tuned. My next video will have me putting this splitter in action with the log lift, Gorillabac Log Lift installed. I also want to do a small comparison. So I've got a entry-level commercial grade splitter that has a dedicated log lift table. So I want to compare not only for ease of use, but perhaps time and efficiencies using the Gorillabac on a standard splitter versus a machine with a dedicated lift arm. Kind of provide some information to you all, so maybe you can help make a decision about what you'd like to invest in. But it's Matt with Firewood in the Field. See you next time.